You're going to be successful in business, you have to be willing to hire people that are smarter than you.
You can't do it yourself. You have to have people that you trust.
Everybody is as important as the next person.
You have to take risks.
Every business should be prepared to be sold in 5 years.
Business Newsmakers is brought to you by Tompkins Mayapack Bank, your local, mobile, and remarkable community bank.
Hello and welcome to Hudson Valley News Network's Business Newsmakers show, brought to you by Tompkins Mayapack Bank. I'm Filomena Fanelli of Impact PR and Communications. I'm lucky to be joined today by Ryan Parsons, Chief Solutionist. Did I get that right?
You did get that right.
At the Brothers That Just Do Gutters.
That is true.
Thank you for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
First of all, catchiest business name ever. I just have to say that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm sure you get that a lot.
We do. We went to a branding seminar and we got an opportunity to sit with people and brainstorm for like a radio campaign. And out of that was born like, so you're brothers. We're like, yep. And they're like, and you do gutters. What else do you do? Like, we don't do anything else.
But you weren't always in the gutter business. I hear you started off in graphic design and then right into the gutter.
I did. I started off in graphic design. I went to school for it. Kind of got plucked right from senior class from an up-and-coming company, a startup. Worked for them right away, and it was awesome. It was exciting. We were just like about to take over the world. It was Silicon Valley type feeling, like in the Hudson Valley. It was looking really good, and then it kind of wasn't looking good. It was like .com, .bomb. My brother, the whole time, like as he saw the transition happening, he's like, come work for me. I'm like, yeah, right, hanging gutter? That sounds kind of like chores when we were kids. I'd have to say that when I first got involved, it was just to hang gutter. And then given the background I had, I did not know I had an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I forgot. I mean, I literally like sold candy on the bus when I was a kid. I started my own landscaping business without equipment. Somehow I knocked on doors and said, I'll use your stuff if you want to hire me to do landscaping. A couple people hired me. But like I had that, and like it was never cultivated. But when my brother and I got together, I'm looking at how he's running his business. I'm like, well, how come you don't have a business for him? Like to keep track of a diagram of a job. And he's like, I don't know. I was like, can I make it? He's like, sure. So it was like really strange that all the graphic design skills I had, I used all of them in the beginning. Making the forms, I built the first website. And what was really cool is the whole time my brother's like, do it, go for it. He just really kind of empowered me to do the stuff that I gravitated towards. And it kind of evolved where, you know, he was on the truck, then I was kind of off the truck. And then before you know it, I'm like, dude, if I'm going to like build this business, like maybe it's a little bit of a different arrangement than, you know, me just working for you, because I actually care. And if I'm going to like go for it, like what does that look like? And we honestly had no idea. Like we weren't businessmen.
It seems like you took that whole idea of being a chief solutionist very literal.
Yes. Well, the chief solutionist was, I remember my brother like he had this business card and it was like president. And I was like, president of what? It's like me, you, and like a guy. I'm like, and it was just funny. And I'm like, can I be the VP of operations and sales? He's like, sure. And it was like, we had these dumb titles for like, literally like a little tiny gutter company with one truck that broke down a lot. So that was it. We kind of thought about our business differently. We didn't take ourselves too seriously.
You started off as Waterfall Seamless Gutters, and then you became the Brothers That Just Do Gutters.
Yes. I remember we got a cease and desist letter from a gutter guard company, the Waterfall Gutter Guard System. And I was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have that name. We could have fought it, and because they said, well, you're local, they're national, you can fight it. And I'm like, you know what? We are going to be national someday. Then it was the recession. And we were so entrenched in new construction. Like we had every major account in the area, and then like all of a sudden we had nothing. Like they stopped building, they stopped paying. I remember having $100,000 in receivables and not able to make payroll. Like wondering how are we going to make payroll, not taking a check. Our whole business got flipped upside down.
So frightening. Was there a moment where you thought, well, maybe I'll just go get a job and we'll just squash this whole idea of taking over the gutter universe?
I don't think we were smart enough to notice. We literally, like, it was what it was, and we just kept fighting for it. It was strange that if we could, I'm going to reveal some stuff. We didn't really know how to read our numbers back then. We weren't like balance sheet and P&L experts like, oh, look at our forecasting. We're trending down. We're like, we don't have money. It's like we kind of had to figure it out on the fly.
As somebody who's in a business that's specialized and we work with and we consult with folks, it seems like you brought some smart people in to give you guidance and feedback that probably you don't even have perspective on yourselves.
Yeah, we try and align ourselves with professionals. We have a business coach. We go to seminars.
So there's no such thing as failure in your world then?
Or
is there?
We failed. We have failed a lot. But it's like our failure is the foundation of our next success, is what it seems to be. It's like when we fail, we learn the lesson. And then I feel like we've now, that becomes a cornerstone of our business. Is like, all right, we failed there. We failed at tons of stuff trying to build this business, but we've always gotten better.
Yeah, you're learning from it. And speaking of learning and mindset of embracing those happy little mistakes, how do you pass that on to the vast amount of people you're managing? How many people are you up to right now?
In the Hudson Valley. So we have the Hudson Valley branch. That's the division or branch that my brother founded and we built up. And then we franchised the business in 2015, and we have 5 other locations. So in the Hudson Valley, I believe there's probably like 25 total employees. It's not huge.
Now, I've heard, and I'm dying to hear more about it, that you have a culture where reading, because you're in a trade, right?
Yeah.
But you have a culture where reading and continuing ed is built into the business model. Can you tell me what does that look like and why?
It looks amazing. And basically, when we were on the downturn, and like you said, did you ever think of giving up? So when we were really at the lowest point, my brother got involved in some kind of like multi-level marketing business, and they had education was like a big part of it. And he was reading these books, and he's like, Ryan, you got to read this book I just read. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe. And then finally I read a book. And then I believe it was Raving Fans was one of the books, and I loved it. And he was trying to get everyone to start reading to educate themselves, but it was really hard to implement. It wasn't like overnight everyone becomes these readers. But eventually, our field supervisor, Job, he read the book Raving Fans. And he comes into our office, slams it on the desk and says, not one guy can run a truck unless they read this.
Wow.
And it was all about customer service. And what books do in an organization is it helps you all start to speak the same language. So in Raving Fans, it talks about doing a +1, which is an additional thing that you would do for a client, like getting the mail. I'm not getting paid for it, but it's a nice thing. So we start talking about +1s. Everyone knows what it is because they read the book. So that's what that did. So once Job did it, he had like, I guess you'd call it the street cred. He worked his way up in the field, and now he's a manager, and it was coming from him. Not the owners who get to sit in their office all day long and they don't know what it's like. It was him, and when he brought that in, and then it evolved.
So I also keep hearing that you've put your system in place, you've nailed it, and now apparently you've scaled it. And I love the idea of nailing.
Nailed it and scaled it.
Nail it
I
and
like
then
that.
scale it.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're up to that incredible adventurous scaling part.
Yes.
And multiple states now. And how do you keep your brand on track? You've built a brand, you saw it work in the Hudson Valley, you widened it out. How do you maintain the integrity of the brothers that just do gutters in Virginia, for instance, when you're here in New York?
It was clunky in the beginning, and I remember when we launched Richmond, Virginia, we went down there for their first install. And I remember just like, I went to the edge of the yard and I put in the yard sign, and I'm looking, I'm like, if I traveled in time and you just popped me here, I would not know that this was their first day on the job. It looked like a company that's been around for 20, 30 years. It was like so cool to see the letter truck, the guys installing the gutter correctly. It was like, this is awesome.
You've come a long way in a very short time. I don't know your age, but I do know you're a young guy, and there's many people out there who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, looking to do the kinds of things you're doing. What advice would you give them?
I think it just comes down to, if you have the dream to build something, like, it's so much work. It's so much work. It is continually learning. I wish I hired a coach years ago. That really helped us from 2010 on. Like I said, we had it kind of circled, all the right ideas, and they really gave us the tools and helped us focus. And I could honestly say we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for them. That's how big of an impact it made on us. So seek help from others, like learn, read. I mean, it's so awesome that I can read a book that took someone a lifetime to learn, and I can literally, in 4 hours, read something and then go implement in my business and not have a lifelong learning curve on at least that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it absolutely did. What I'm hearing for all of you tuning into Business Newsmakers is read, ask questions, don't be afraid to fail, and bring in someone who knows more than you do. Just that simple. And thank you for sharing everything you know today,
problem.
Ryan.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. If you ever start that book club, please count me in.
all right.
Thank you to all of you for tuning into Business Newsmakers, and keep coming back, because each week we're going to get more valuable tips from the names we know, the businesses whose logos we recognize throughout the Hudson Valley.
Now it's time for this week's Tompkins Tip with Amy Greiner, Vice President of Business Development.
One of the most overlooked aspects of running a successful business is a proper succession plan. It's always good to ask the question, what's next for my business? Establish a plan for your business's succession, including considerations of, if you are the only owner, who will take over if something unexpected happens to you? Is it your spouse, children, key personnel? If you have a business partner, do you have a buy-sell agreement? More importantly, how would it be funded? If not done properly, you could end up in business with your partner's spouse or their next of kin. Are the business debt obligations properly insured? At all times, you should understand what is owed by the company and how it will be repaid. Who is the next generation of leaders within your organization, and how can you define their role more clearly? Understanding issues related to financial, tax, legal, and insurance positions. Most importantly, advanced planning for a business succession should happen before the need arises. It's never too early to have a good plan.
Business Newsmakers is brought to you by Tompkins Mayapack Bank, your local, mobile, and remarkable community bank.